Recording in progress.
Okay. Well, good morning. Today's Thursday, June 13th, 2024, and this is the regular meeting of the Tompkins County Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. Welcome, everyone. We're joined this morning by Legislator Lee Shurtleff and Legislator Shauna Black and myself. We're expecting Rich John, and Deborah Dawson is excused this morning. Why don't we take the minutes? Lee, Shauna, discussion? Rich John just came in. We're taking the minutes. Any questions on them, Rich?
No.
Then can we vote? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Changes to the agenda. I will ask for comments from the public. I don't see anyone here. Do we have anybody? No comments from the public. We're going to go right into the presentation from Tompkins Cortland Community College, and then I'm going to move up the discussion about the sexual harassment policy because Maury Josephson has asked us to move that up because he's otherwise involved with another matter. So, very, very pleased to have a huge delegation this morning from Tompkins Cortland Community College, including Amy Kremenick, the president, and Judy Davison, the chair of the Board of Trustees, and others. So, Amy, would you like to take it away? Would you want to introduce everybody?
Yes, thank you, Mike, and I want to thank everyone for having us here this morning. I would like to start by recognizing our board members. As Mike said, Judy Davison is the chair of our board, 1970 alumna of TC3, and also an appointee of the Cortland County Legislature. And seated next to Judy is Roxanne Buck, who is an appointee of the Tompkins County Legislature, as well as the college's representative to the New York Community College trustees. I'd also like to recognize Sophia Darling, who is our VP of Finance and Administration, and seated next to her is Dennis Paganides, who is the college's comptroller. So we have a presentation for you this morning. We're going to provide an update on the college and what's happening at TC3, as well as present to you our TC3 proposed operating budget for 24-25, which was just approved by the college's Board of Trustees at the May meeting. I'm not sure who's running the slides. Okay. All right, so we want to start out and just give you an update on where we are in terms of enrollment. Believe it or not, we're about 10 weeks away from the start of the semester, so even though it's not even summer, it's already fall at the college in many ways. Currently, our enrollment for continuing students, this is the students who are enrolled in the spring, who are already enrolled for fall, is up about 16%. This has been a real focus of ours over the last couple of years to really ensure that students who are making their way to the college, we want them to not only make their way for one semester, but we want them to persist semester to semester and then ultimately complete. Our total core enrollment at this point is up about 4%, and when we talk about core enrollment, this is what you would consider to be traditional college students who would be taking courses either in person or online at the college. These are not students who are enrolled in our high school programs. So our concurrent enrollment program certainly continues to grow, but we're very focused on those traditional college students who are enrolled in our degree and certificate programs. Our applications at this point are on par with the previous year. We have about 1,000 applications that are in hand right now for the fall semester. It's consistent with where we were last year. What is really changing is our acceptance rate, which is up over 100%. We made some changes this year where we previously were requiring college transcripts. So any student who had college experience before coming to TC3, and many community college students do, we were requiring requiring that they produce those transcripts before they even are accepted. The problem with that is that as an open access institution, graduates from high schools in New York State are guaranteed acceptance to their community college. And by requiring the transcripts at that point, we were really creating some barriers for students that were difficult to overcome. Transcripts are needed for many reasons, including evaluation of transfer credit, financial aid purposes, but they're not required for acceptance. So we made some changes on that, and therefore our acceptance rate is up considerably. We have made some investments in our enrollment services area. This is the area that consists of our advising center, admissions, billing, as well as the marketing area, because we want to make sure we're making the investments, particularly in systems and in staff, to ensure that we have really stable and continued student growth. This graph shows our full-time equivalent enrollment. We are paid by the state based on FTE, so not based on individual heads, but based on FTE. So one FTE can consist of 3 individual people, depending on if we have a part-time student or not. But FTE is how we are funded by the state. You can see in this graph that the pandemic certainly didn't help community colleges, but the enrollment decline was really even occurring prior to that. TC3 is not any different from most of the community colleges across the country. The peak was around 2012, 2013 for us, as well as most other colleges. But in recent years, in the last 4 semesters, we've started to turn that around, and we're starting to see enrollment growth. What we are also seeing is some growth in FTE, but also in headcount. Right now, our part-time enrollment population is on track to grow by about 12%. And while that's good, because we know students are working and raising families and not everyone can come full-time, the challenge with that is, again, based on our state funding at least, we're funded on an FTE, which inherently has this assumption that somehow that's 1 student. It's not. It's definitely more than that. So we've talked here before about what we're doing in terms of our micro-credentials. We've been very active with our local employers, in particular those employers that serve individuals with developmental disabilities. We have a fairly new micro-credential program called Direct Support Provider. This is for professionals who work with that population, and that was funded by an OPWDD grant, Office for Persons with Developmental Disabilities, state grant. We've completed the first cohort, and our faculty have been very active in developing the Direct Support Provider 3 micro-credential, and that will be going to the board in the near term for review and approval. We're also working on a new micro-credential in GIS, Geographic Information Systems, based on feedback that we've received from the community that this is an area that they would like to see some additional skills-based training and talent prepared to take those jobs, as well as a program I'm particularly excited about, which is an AS transfer program in health sciences. This would be a program that would provide the first 2 years of a health science bachelor's degree. There are many fields that require associate degrees, but there are many fields that require bachelor's degrees, and those are needs also in our community. Upstate Medical University, yes?
GIS and AS.
GIS is, Geographic Information Systems, and then AS is an Associate of Science degree. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Associate of Science degrees are meant for transfer. So the health sciences program would be really designed to articulate with Upstate Medical University, which does not provide the first 2 years, but is essentially a bachelor's completion program to about 14 bachelor's degrees, all in the health sciences, and those are certainly areas of need in this area. I just want to give you an update on where we are in terms of recent efforts around workforce development. You may have seen recently that we are partnered with the Cornell Nanoscale facility, as well as Penn State University, on a certificate program for microelectronics and nanomanufacturing, specifically for veterans and their families. This provides tuition support, so this program is offered at no cost to area veterans and families, supporting both education as well as internship opportunities. Speaking of internships, we received funding from SUNY, $116,000 to create an internship fund to support students who have opportunity for internships, but unfortunately they are either unpaid or low paid. The challenge with that for community college students is that the vast majority of our students work, not necessarily for pocket money, but for living expenses, transportation, food, rent, and they can't afford to take an unpaid internship because they simply can't afford to be away from paid work. This fund provides stipend support for them to be able to continue to pay their bills, but also take advantage of the important internships. We have a Tourism Pathways grant. We're associated with the Southern Tier 8 Coalition for that. Obviously, tourism is critically important in Tompkins County. We want to be sure that we're producing students to take those jobs. We also have a recent program, again, this is funded through the opioid settlement money, the OASIS CASIC, which is the credential for alcohol and substance abuse counselors, and there are scholarship dollars associated with that so that students can take those credentials at no cost to themselves. And certainly everyone is aware of the issues with opioids and substance abuse and how much we need people prepared to take those jobs. The college has very close relationships with the county and with community partners. We, in addition to our own students, bring hundreds of people to our campus every year for a series of career development programs, activities, events, ways to connect local people with jobs, as well as, ideally, with the college's programs as well. And so that's something that will continue through our workforce development department. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sophia and to Dennis to speak to our revenue as well as presentation on our budget proposal.
Good morning, everybody, and it's great to be here. This is Dennis's and I's first take at the budget process, or excuse me, the budget process for the college. We had a great foundation set by our former colleague, so we want to extend our gratitude there. But just a little bit of a moment to take a look into what the budget process entails. So it's a pretty active effort across the organization. And when I say across the organization, I also don't want to forget the foundation and the ARM, the Faculty Student Association, right? So the college does provide some funding into those areas, and so it was important for us to not only look into, dig a little bit deeper, if you will, increase the transparencies in how the college works with our foundation and our FSA, but also to create better synergies across those organizations. Well, first, and then also going back to the college, process. Dennis and I actively met with a variety of, if not all, department managers in terms of trying to get a good sense of their respective department needs, trying to do a little bit of future projections from across the organization, whether it's infrastructure in terms of facilities, but also technology, right? One of the challenges that we'll see, and we'll talk a little bit more about in the presentation, is the various investments in aging infrastructures, both on a facility side and a technology side. But let's first start with the revenue analysis. Dennis and I are going to tag team through the presentation, and so I'll let him explain a little bit about what we have currently displayed and the respective categories.
So here's hi from me too. I just wanted to start with the revenue analysis for our 2024-25 budget. As you can see here, it's a fairly simple model. All the community colleges in the SUNY system have been funded traditionally in a simple model of 1/3 coming from the state, from SUNY, 1/3 coming from county dollars, and 1/3 coming from the students. Over the years, and this is for the last probably 60 years, things have changed, and the last several years from the 90s on, we have seen a significant change into that, going mostly against the students. So the students have to foot the largest amount of the funding of the community colleges, and this happens with us right now. As you can see, for next year, we're planning to be funded by about 37% by the students, 28% by state aid, so we get that from SUNY. About 30% is the local contributions, the county contributions, and this is about 40 or 45% from our sponsor counties, Tompkins and Cortland, plus the rest comes from other counties that we get charged back dollars for our students. The large portion of that comes from our really big concurrent program that we're running at TC3.
One quick note on, as we crafted the budget as well, I want to note that we came in with county funding stable. There was no increases proposed in what we'll see in the budget, so I did want to make that note. Thank you. All right, then, as we dig into the expense side of the budget, you'll see that the majority of our funds here are directed towards wages, right? 48% respectively, and 24% with fringe. The majority of our budget is obviously labor. One of the areas that we're continuing to look deep into throughout the course of the year are making sure that we have efficiencies within our expenses, whatever category they might be. For instance, whether it be health insurance, whether it be the contractuals, there's further, not research, but further due diligence in those respective areas to make sure that we can have the best efficiencies as possible. So within that, Dennis, do you want to? No. Oh, okay.
I will take the next slide. Mr. Lane, in one of our last meetings, he had requested to see the amounts of sponsor aid that we received from Tompkins County. So I put together this quick graph over here so you can see from 2013 till last year to see, and this year the funding has been staying stable. So as you can see, we started a little bit under $2,800,000, and we are right now at about $3,027,000. We have been having about 7% increase over the last 10 years. And of course, as you understand, the consumer price index for those years is much higher. So our funding, especially from the state being stable for so many years and from the counties, keeps dropping with everything getting higher, or all of our expenses keep increasing. So this is a quick depiction of that.
May I ask, excuse me, Dennis, does that include the over-target money that we gave, or just the base aid?
No, this is the base aid.
Thank you.
The next slide that I wanted to present to you is our enrollment by region for this current fiscal year, 2023-24. As you can see here, the blue portion of the disc is the sponsor county, so Tompkins and Cortland. As you can see, they take the lion's share, much more than 50%. And the orange portion is the donut counties, as we call them. So it's the counties directly surrounding the two sponsor counties. As you can see, your dollars do go, they go to fund mostly many of resident students, and most of our core students come from the two counties plus the neighboring counties. There is a small percentage that comes from different other areas, and we keep working in order to get as many students from local students.
From our local regions, absolutely. Right, so facilities, the never-ending investment. So our new labs, our STEAM and engineering labs, which were funded by SUNY transformational funds. These are up and running. They're beautiful. For those of you that were able to come to the after hours and see the facilities, they are marvelous. There is minor investment, upgrades in some equipment continuing through those labs, but again, operational, and they're really been a wonderful addition to the college. This ties in, the network replace ties into the over target request that was funded previously. I believe we're in the third year of those over target requests. And the ComSource, this was, folks recall, we talked about where this investment went. It went into wireless access point upgrades, fiber optics, network switch, all those IT things that were much needed and were aging. Safety, not only, which is, right, cybersecurity, data security. So an incredible amount of investment into the IT and the network infrastructure there. Improvements in the public safety systems. This is the security camera upgrades that we outfitted throughout the college. We also extended this out, obviously, to our resident halls for the safety, obviously, of our students. But again, another major upgrade across from a security perspective. We embarked on a request for proposal for a new facilities master plan. 3 firms responded, and we are finalizing that decision within the next week. And in more exciting news, we have a facility director joining us the latter part of this month. And once that person is on board, we will immerse him in not only the facility master plan, but also the deferred maintenance and more formal meetings, if you will, but also planning and involving that person into this. And then just quick, lastly, on the over targets, I mentioned the network upgrades and the support, the multi-year, 3-year funding there. There was also a workforce, career and coordinator funding position as well. And that person is still on board at TC3, and again, we're, I believe, in our 3rd year of that funding for those over targets, so thank you.
The next slide has some highlights of our 2024-25 budget. We start with our enrollment. We keep working on increasing our enrollment, and we're hoping and we're predicting about 4% increase in our core enrollment. The tuition rates for this year will stay status quo, and we're hoping to be able to stay stable with rates for the next for some time. The revenues are going to be about $34.1 million, or a $0.2 million increase, and the expenses are going to be $35.2 million, also a $0.2 million increase. We're pretty much against status quo. You see there's not big changes. We're assuming incremental increases in wages, and we're currently working into reviewing all of our benefits costs so we can try to control that. There is so many different benefits for employees and retirees, and we're trying to see if we can find some efficiencies there. Also, I wanted to report that currently, there are open negotiations with all collective bargaining units, and we're working on certain, of course, there's a lot of requests, and we're trying to control all that. TC3 is noted as having one of the lowest cost per student among SUNY community colleges, and we're planning to stay on this pace so we can attract more students and be a good value. Our fund balance draw for next year will be about $1.1 million. Our fund balance currently is about $5.3 million, slightly smaller than 6 pays, so we're trying to stay at the place where we can be responsible, and we can have security for the future for our employees and for our students. This is our main goal for the future, to maintain a fund balance that will allow us to be able to be fiscally responsible and secure.
And on that note, if I could, thank you, Dennis, just also comment on my earlier comment in terms of reviewing the expenses, frequently, if you will. But also part of that is finding efficiencies, modernization, and we talked about increases in the various technologies to mitigate risk and to ensure that we are in compliance. So that all ties into the fiscal sustainability as well, and the continued oversight of, especially the expense side of our operating budget.
Could I ask, Dennis, when you say the lowest cost per student, is that the expenditures by the college, or is that what the students expend?
The student expense.
So it's what they have to pay?
Right.
Thank you.
Making it a good value.
And
Lisa?
could you define this, what 6 pays, what that means?
So it means that we can be securely make 6 wage cycles with our fund balance.
And how frequent are the wage cycles?
Biweekly.
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly.
Okay, thank you.
So about 3 months, a little less than 3 months.
Thank you.
There is a limitation, not limitation, there is a suggestion, a recommendation by the SUNY system as regarding our fund balance to be between 5 and 15%. We're on the higher end right now of this recommended area. Of course, there is some reasons you can create the designated fund balances for particular purposes, and we're planning to getting into that conversation with our board. But traditionally, we were on the lower end of the 5 to 15%. So we're doing everything we can in order to be fiscally responsible for the students and the employees and everybody in the college.
Rich?
I'm just curious, what happened to fund balance this past year? Did you have inflows as well as the money you took out of it?
We had about $1.6 million last year.
Added
To
Thank
our
you.
fund balance. For this current year, we're planning on this current year, 2023-24, we're planning on using about $1 million. We feel right now that we're in a pace to not use all of it. So it might even be a little higher than $5.3 million.
Okay, so the net effect is the fund balance has been going up marginally.
Right.
Good, okay.
The last slide that I would like to present is the board-approved budget. As you can see, it has 2 columns, the 2023-24 current year budget plus the budget for next year. You can see here the changes between the different categories. The first 2 revenue lines are the tuition and the fees, the third line. Then we have the New York State aid that stays even. The sponsoring contributions is the contributions from the 2 counties, Cortland and Tompkins, and it's about $4,882,000. And the next line is the county chargebacks, that it's the amount that we receive from the students outside of those sponsoring counties that they come to our college. Again, big portion of that is probably about 60 to 70% comes from our concurrent program. There is other revenues, and then the total revenues, as I described to you, it's about $34 million. The approved use of fund balance for the year will be about $1.1 million. And in the bottom of the screen, you can see our expenses, as I have described before in our disk chart. You can see the wages, the fringes make about over 70% of our budget, expenses budget. The contractuals is another area where is most of other expenses that every department and every place in our college spends money. So you can see there is a small increase. This makes up the budget. So if you have any questions, please go ahead.
And within that contractual amount, I don't mean to keep going back to this, but it's important to note, is where those investments in the risk management, right, the IT security, the cyber security, those are built into that. I believe it's a modest 3% increase in the contractuals as well.
Judy or Roxanne, did you want to make any comments before we move on to? You don't have to, I just asked.
I guess I would just reinforce what's been mentioned, that, we've made a concerted effort to keep student tuition stable, recognizing that the students are paying a disproportionate percentage of the budget. That's not unusual as you look at community colleges around the state, but with the lack of state funding, it's a fact of life that students are paying that disproportionate amount. So in an effort to attract more students and keeping that tuition stable, I think that's an important factor. And certainly, we've appreciated the support from Tompkins County, whether it's through the regular budget process or the additional funds for special projects. So hope that continues.
Thank you. Amy?
So that concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions about what was presented or anything else that's on your mind about the college.
Well, let's start. Rich?
I think Shauna was ahead of me.
Shauna? I didn't see your hand. Go
That's
ahead,
all right.
Shauna.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could tell us how TC3 is comparing with some of the other community colleges throughout the state as far as enrollment, also as far as fund balance, expenses. It would be nice to know. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I'll speak a bit to enrollment, and then I'll pass it over across the way here to talk about fund balance. But in terms of enrollment, last year we were one of the top community colleges with increases, which we felt pretty good about. In terms of that, we're a smaller institution, so the net number is smaller perhaps than some of the larger colleges. But that being said, certainly to be in the plus column is a good thing. Given the last few years. So this year, as we said, right now we're tracking about 4% up in core enrollment. We have about 10 weeks to go, and we continue to really step on the gas to make sure that every student who has applied has a reasonable chance to be able to get into the college, get registered for classes, and then get ready for August 26th, which is the first day. In terms of fund balance, I'm going to ask my colleagues across the way to speak to that. I think, and Dennis mentioned this as well, is that there are colleges with significantly larger fund balances that are designated for specific purposes, particularly colleges that are self-insured. TC3 is not a self-insured college. We purchase through the Healthcare Consortium.
Thank you.
Yes. Again, I would like to mention that recommendation by the SUNY system that we be between 5 and 15%. So most colleges float somewhere in there. We're on the higher end of that. We're about 14% right now. As the president mentioned, there is some colleges that they have designated fund balances that they are used for particular purposes. I think we're in the stage right now that we're thinking about creating more of those fund balances, but I do not have real knowledge exactly of where we stand in the community colleges. The only thing that I can say is that we are within the SUNY limits and of the recommendation. and on the higher end, and we're trying to stay there or create more efficiencies and more fund balance designated in the future in order to support our operations better.
And at the same time, maintain appropriate tuition rates for students, because there are 29 other community colleges in New York State that we compete with, as well as, quite honestly, the four-year institution. Our tuition right now is about $5,300 a year, which is, those who are paying college tuition, I'm sure know, the prices, particularly of the four-year schools, but SUNY schools, four-year schools are somewhere around $7,300, $7,400 a year. So we want to be sure that we are maintained as an affordable option for students, and we don't want to get too close to that four-year rate.
That's great. Thank you.
Rich.
Just to be clear, the sponsoring contribution, you're saying keep level. Are there specific requests? Are there ongoing one-time?
We're talking about that at the moment, and I know that that process for Tompkins County will be starting, or has already started, based on my discussion with Lisa, and we would work with both counties, obviously, as the...
So there'll be more coming perhaps in the fall?
We'd like to, I mean, particularly as it relates to some deferred maintenance capital types of needs.
Okay, and I guess I'd add, as legislators, we can't have favorite children, but I always like TC3 coming here. The mission is so important in so many elements of what the county is supposed to be doing. I feel a little guilty that you're not asking for more money. You know, we're in a really tough budget year, but I wouldn't mind if you forced us to say no. You know, ask for it, because I think in the longer term, it's important that Tompkins County gets to its 1/3 commitment that was the original agreement, which is really hard. That's 3% more than and we'd have to get Cortland to come along. But if we can get there, then we can really go to New York State and say, you got to do your job. And we don't have the moral high ground to do that right now. And frankly, it's embarrassing to me that the students are paying more than 1/3. I don't know how we do that, and we might have to say no, but if you don't ask, I'm happy to be pushed, is what I'm saying. Thanks.
We're grateful for your support. Thank you.
Lee, did you want to?
Just a question, Dr. Kremenek. Did you mention you are participants in the county healthcare consortium?
Yes, we are.
That's good. And I was just kind of interested in the drop in your fringe rate at a time when everybody else seems to be seeing some large increases.
Mm-hmm. The fringe rate. I'm going to ask Dennis and/or Sophia to address that.
We actually, so the fringe rate, as many folks know, are made up of a variety of different, not only the health piece of it, but also the other fringes. And we have experienced a decrease in our workers' comp, for instance, and some other portions of that, what goes into that total fringe number. So I believe the workers' comp was actually, there was a considerable decrease actually as compared to the prior year. And Dennis, I believe that's, yeah. But
Our fringe percentage compared to our wages was about 52% for the last couple of years. Our goal for next year is to go to about 50%, and this is depicted into this budget. We're trying to create some efficiencies there. We have negotiations with our unions. We're trying to negotiate into some lower cost plans. We're trying to do everything we can. We're looking at every possible area where we can reduce that cost of, as you can see, over $8 million, and we're hoping to be able to get some efficiencies.
Thank you. Good to hear.
Norma Jane.
I just wanted to, while we're putting together a budget this year to meet a goal of 2%, I wanted to make sure that everybody was understanding that because of the timeline that we're making this commitment to TC3, these folks will not be affected by the reduction that the departments are having to face. because right now we're asking folks to come in with a 5% reduction in their budget. I wanted to make sure that this committee knew that because of the timing that we're doing this, that would not be taking effect unless we are directed to do something else.
Rich?
Yeah, for clarity, I mentioned a third. That's long-term. I understand we can't get there this year or even in the near term, but that I think is the vision that we as a legislature should be working towards. Yeah.
I, for one, really appreciate this chart of what we've been paying for our base. We haven't had an increase to the college in our base amount since 2019. And that's a long time. We made some progress toward trying to get toward that 33 1/3%, but haven't done so in the last few years. But of course, we had pandemic and everything else in the way. I do want to mention, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the student tuition expense is paid for certainly the full-time students by Pell and TAP grants. But where the ones that get hurt are the part-time students. Is that correct in my understanding?
The vast majority of students at TC3 and all community colleges receive some form of financial aid, and Pell eligibility is around 80%, which is a proxy really for low income. And so full-time students do have clearly eligibility for Pell as well as the tuition assistance program, or TAP. On the part-time side, there is eligibility as well for part-time TAP. It's less. There's also issues with living expenses. Pell eligibility allows for living expenses, which makes a significant difference for students. But we also have many students who pay out of pocket, who do not, for whatever reason, qualify for aid, or in some cases don't file for financial aid. So one of the real strong initiatives of the college, as well as the SUNY system, is to ensure that every student completes a FAFSA. It's not always an easy process, particularly this year, but we want to be sure that every student applies, because sometimes they're surprised that they are eligible for some aid. And, you know, for our students, every dollar counts.
Would that include the part-time micro-credential students or not?
The state is now allowing financial aid for credit-bearing micro-credentials, not for non-credit workforce training. So other programs that we offer, certified nurse assistant, medical assistant, other professions that are in great need in this community are not currently financial aid eligible because they are non-credit. But our micro-credential programs are all college credit-bearing, which means they are eligible at least for the TAP program.
Other questions? Lee?
Just a comment, not to throw cold water on Rich, but
Go ahead.
no, it's a good presentation, and I appreciate the request that you're making. One of the things we're seeing, especially in light of the school budgets across the state, is that a lot of people are in areas where enrollments have declined are complaining that the price of the costs of the school districts haven't decreased, even though the number of students have, and that's something that, you know, that could be posed to us if we were looking to do an increase, is the fact that FTEs are down by a significant number, but your baseline costs appear to be fairly consistent. Mm-hmm. So that would be, you know, the kind of a counter to what you're suggesting, Rich.
But we are seeing enrollment growth, and I think that was the case last year as well.
4 semesters, yeah.
And
we hope it continues.
Me too.
Yeah, we do. We do.
I just want to thank you for that comment, and that's definitely a point well taken. Our FTE has started to turn around, which is good, and we have seen significant decreases since 2017, as was shown in the graph. Part of the challenge of FTE is, though, it's that it's not showing the head count. So, for example, as I mentioned, the part-time students are up nearly 12% right now, and we can't discriminate and say part-time student receives a third the assistance for financial aid counselors, or cannot access some of the other services on campus, mental health, advising, those types of things are provided to each individual student without regard to the type of student that is enrolled or the number of credit hours that they are enrolled for. And that's really, I think, part of the challenge with state funding being based on FTE versus individual students.
Well, I think that's a good a good point for you to make. Actually, the more part-time students that you have indicates to me that the workforce is engaging in coming to the college in addition to working their careers, and the headcount number may very well be something that benefits a presentation like this. It tells you that there's more use in the community.
Yes, yes, thank you. There is more use in the community, absolutely. We also, I didn't mention, we added a adult student admission advisor. That was one of the investments we made in the enrollment service office, where this person has background not only in higher education, but also in human services. So she comes from a nonprofit most recently and is charged with making those connections with nonprofits to help serve clients, to help them get into the workforce or get a better job than the one they already have.
Can I just add something?
Go ahead, Roxanne.
In response to Lee's comment? During the recent state budget process, numbers were presented of the cost per student by K through 12 versus the cost per student in community colleges, and it's a very startling difference. They are spending a lot more per student than we are. So just throw that out there.
Good to know.
All right. Rich.
What are those numbers? Because I've heard the numbers in the recent ICSD vote was up around 30,000 a student.
What was it, like 19,000 statewide for K through 12?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. We can certainly get that, but the four-year institutions in terms of state support is nearly $20,000 per student, and community colleges are funded by the state at $29.32 or something like that. So it's a significant difference between the 4 years, as well as Roxanne was saying, K through 12. Community colleges are really among the most efficient systems, if not the most efficient system we have in serving students with the most need.
Okay, anything else on the budget? This has been a really informative presentation. Amy, I wondered if you might speak to this issue at the state legislature about the possibility of requiring an 11th trustee on the board who had to come from, faculty or staff or something like that?
And I know Roxanne, who is our representative to the New York Community College Trustees Association, can speak to this as well. But we learned earlier in the legislative session that there had been a bill that was introduced to add an 11th member to community college boards of trustees, which really changes state education law, which I believe has been in effect in this state for well over 50 years, if not 60 or 70. So at the time, certainly the community college presidents were not aware of it, neither, I don't think, the trustees, but that really presents some significant concern on the part of the presidents, and I know the trustees. The presidents have fiduciary responsibility, they have policy-making responsibility for the community colleges. They also are responsible for professional appointments, for employee appointments, employee salaries, collective bargaining agreements, all of which they are responsible for. The conflict of interest policy in the college's policy manual that is approved by the board, and this is true across the state, prohibits having a member of the college's board which is paid in any way. Clearly, if there was an employee sitting on the board, they would be paid. So there's just that clear, stark difference. There's also concern on the part of the community colleges for accreditation. All community colleges are accredited. You must be accredited in order to be able to provide financial aid for your students. Middle States Accreditation, Commission on Accreditation, which is who we are accredited by, Standard 7 speaks to governance and boards, and states that a minimum standard of accreditation is that all board members must be free of conflicts of interest, among other concerns. But so we have brought that up and urged a pause. We do know that the session adjourned, and it was not entirely enacted, but it certainly did make some progress. So with that, I know Roxanne has more to add.
Just by way of a little bit of background, every community college in New York State has a 10-member board of trustees. 9 of us are appointed by the sponsoring counties, some from Tompkins and some from Cortland. And then there's annually a student trustee that's appointed to the board. All 10 are voting members of the Board of Trustees. So this legislation would initially, the way it was written, would have added a faculty member to our Board of Trustees. Again, as Amy said, a conflict of interest in the sense that that would be the paid person who would be on our Board of Trustees. The bill was actually amended to now read that it would be a faculty member or a staff member. Not sure why that got amended in the way that it did, but it still represents the same conflict of interest. And, you know, if you think about a meeting and any executive sessions that we may have, those are generally to talk about a personnel matter or negotiations with the various contracts. And it would, at least in my opinion, not be appropriate to have a staff member or a faculty member who would be in those bargaining groups to be part of those executive sessions. So it not only a conflict of interest, it's just very awkward, to say the least. You know, we're a public group. We have public meetings. People are welcome to come and, you know, speak as a member of the public or, you know, staff members. And occasionally we have that happen, but not very frequently. But, you know, the staff members or faculty certainly are welcome to do that at any time. Every college, every community college has a shared governance system. And in our case, the group is called the College Senate. It's made up of faculty and staff who consider various issues throughout the year and will then bring those issues forward to the president and or the Board of Trustees. So I see that as the means by which any faculty or staff member could bring issues forward. And someone from the College Senate always presents at our board meetings. So we do hear that information at every meeting. So I'm not sure what really is behind this effort. As Amy said, it did pass the Senate. The amended version passed the Senate. And it was put aside on the Assembly calendar, so it has not passed the Assembly. But obviously, you know, if they were to come back for a special session, you know, that could change.
I wonder, is there a resolution out there that we might be able to look at and possibly put through a committee and see whether there would be support for that on the legislature?
I would certainly think we could help draft one.
That would
Sure.
be great.
Yeah, sure.
Rich?
Does the legislation have anything about who appoints?
No, that's the other kind of crazy thing about it. And now that it reads faculty or staff, you know, in my mind, it creates a division between those two groups of people of who's going to be this person. Is it going to be a faculty member? Is it going to be a staff member? And, you know, do they vote on that, or how do they get there, and, you know, who's the priority? So it's very awkward in that sense that it doesn't address that.
The initial legislation stated that it would be an individual elected by the faculty.
But now that it's two groups.
Yeah.
The legislature decided to help industrial development agencies too with their board composition, so you're not alone.
I guess that's reassuring.
I don't know.
Thank you for that update.
Okay.
Anything else for our group that we've got here today? Thank you to the college. Thanks for the job you do so well for the people of our 2 counties and all around the whole region.
Thank you.
And the world.
Thank you.
And Mike, you got the memo for the right color shirt.
Nice to meet you. See you back in town.
Hi. Check that website.
Okay, let's move on. We've been asked to move up an item for Maury Josephson. We have the, find out where it is. It's Resolution F under item 11, which is resolution to update the administrative policy manual on the sexual harassment prevention. I believe this came to the legislature and it came back for more discussion, as I recall. So who wants to take the lead on this one at this point? Maury, are you there? Good morning.
Bridget.
Can't hear you.
Okay, I just unmuted myself. Apologies. Yes, basically, well, what happened was this was before government operations last week, and because I came into this in the middle of the process, I just recently had the opportunity to do some initial edits to the policy for the GO meeting, and then did a more intensive review. And I think the consensus at this point among Bridget, Ruby, and myself is that Ruby would like some more time to go over the edits that I had come up with. There were also some issues that some legislators raised with respect to the policy. So the thought was that we can assemble all that and return with the policy to government operations, to this committee, and whichever other committees, if any, need to look at that next month.
So, Ruby, is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay. Lisa, is that okay with you?
Sure.
All right. Then I think let's just withdraw this morning and sit with bated breath until it comes back after going to GO again. Thank you, Maury, for the report. And thanks for the work on it.
Thank you very much. And I'd love to stay, but I do need to run. And thank you. Thanks again.
We understand. Thank you.
Mike, question.
Wait a minute. There is a question.
Just a question for Ruby.
Who did?
Me.
You've got a question. Oh, okay. Can we let Maury go? Do you want him here?
No, just.
Right. Thank you, Maury. We'll let you go.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Lee.
Well, it could be for anybody, but I'll give it to Ruby. If somebody's got a question so far, would you welcome that?
Yes.
At this point?
Yes.
Okay. Because there is a little
We'll make notes.
little wording in there, but nothing I really want to
Okay.
challenge, but be clarified with.
Be glad to receive it.
Thanks.
Yeah, agreed. And Rich had raised some comments as well. So, yeah, we'll just assemble all that.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Somebody's phone.
If you like to email
let's go
it or just
to-
give it to me.
I'm sorry? Let's go to our county administrator's report.
Thank you, Mike. today we have a report that harkens back to the budget retreat in April. There were questions or a request to look at history of the one-time over-target requests that came to the legislature and were funded and absorbed into target, and looking at those for both agencies as well as departments. And our new budget director, Corey Post, has done a lot of work on that together with Norma Jane and Samantha Freilich. So I'm going to turn it over to Corey and Norma to walk us through the software where we have this analysis.
Good morning.
First, let's say thank you for doing that. I think that was a request that Greg made, wasn't it? But I think it's something that we're all very interested in.
I agree, and this came on my second day that I started, and so to have a project like this was actually quite a good learning experience for me, to look back at 10 years worth of data, to see the decisions that were made, what was important to at the time. So it was a really good learning experience for me to start as the budget director. So yeah, the budget team, we went through 10 years worth of data and compiled it into the OpenGov system to be able to allow the legislature access to dig deeper into the data, what is important to you. We sorted the data into not only agencies and departments, like Lisa stated, but into different types of themes, as well as targets versus OTRs versus amendments, as well as COLA increases. I will turn it over to Norma to help you guys understand how to use the OpenGov system. I don't feel qualified yet to do that without confusing you even more.
Don't feel bad.
Yeah, so we've, they did a great job pulling it all together and trying to go through. As you all know, we've had a bit of a fractured budget system for some time. So going through multiple systems over the past 10 years was kind of an interesting task for these folks to do. What we've done is we've compiled this data into OpenGov, and you'll be getting an email from us kind of giving you an overview of how to use the information we're sharing with you today. But really what we're hoping to get from this team at this committee is if there's something that we're missing, if there's a different way you'd like to see the information, that type of thing after you've seen the tools that we've provided for you. So right now we've given you an online report. You don't even have to log in to see a couple of different views. Right now what you see on the screen is an agency view. There's an agency view, there's an agency target with COLA, and then department views by category and over target requests. And I'll kind of walk through just a couple of these very quickly. I'm just going to click on this target OTR and COLA adjustments. As you can see on this report, it shows the kind of how the data is arrayed, the amount, the year that is showing, and then the type of how it's being divided up. So the categories that it's dividing up. All the agencies are showing here on the right. When you see as I hover over each of these agencies, it highlights. If you want to drill down to one of these data sets, you just click on the name. It'll drill down to that particular data set. And then down below, it has all of the information that correlates with the view that you're seeing in the chart. So when we click down here, we can see all the years of all the activities for over the years. The theme is the category that the team has put together. So if it's, in this case, it's agency support or personnel, because we're talking about only agencies. It shows the agency name, the type of change. So if it's a COLA or an OTR. Those are really the two delineators in the type. The amount, this is all based on local share, so what you're seeing in the amount is a local share dollar amount. And then the target OTR, the short descriptions that were included in the budget. I'm going to kind of scroll over because the screen is big. So you see we've got the different adjustments. What's nice about this tool is you can start kind of drilling into information if you're looking for something particular. So for example, I can select the type and just click on the filter. Of course, I'm not gonna. So I only want to see the OTRs. I don't want to see the COLA adjustments. It really doesn't have a great bearing on what we're looking at here. So I'm going to just look at the OTRs. I filtered that. I'm going to press apply, and it filters that data down to what we want to see. And don't try to absorb all of this because we really have provided you both a video and a narrative to kind of walk you through these steps to use the system. But now you can see we're only looking at the OTRs. We're only looking at the short descriptions that were based on the OTRs that were approved, and these are targets. From the same screen, I can make a couple of other decisions. So now I don't want to see Cornell Cooperative Extension. I simply X that out. So I click on it, it goes away. If I want to see all of the types that I've filtered for, so I filtered to OTRs, I can click that, and I can see all of those. Everything comes back. And if I don't want to only see agencies, but I want to see all of the departments and the agencies, I can now just click this out, and I'll be able to see all the agencies, all the departments, all in the same chart. Is this making sense so far? Okay. And then again, once you've done that, I know you're probably really loving this, Michael. Once you get into this list, you're still doing the same thing. You can click in and hone in on just one department or one agency and be able to look at the details below. The other, I would just want to also note that there's within the targets, so now I'm showing all of the information that's been compiled within the targets. If I want to see something or when I'll search for something, so for example, I think during the retreat, there were particular projects that folks were interested in seeing where they've ended up. You can filter for that as well here just by putting in a portion of the name. So it contains, let's just say, home. I'm just going to put housing because I think there's a couple of targets. I'll add that in, and I can apply that and look at all of the OTRs that are just based on housing. So that'll pull them up regardless of the agency that the target adjustment was made for. Finally, that all of this data is exportable. So for those who would prefer to have this in an Excel spreadsheet, it's real simple to click Excel, hit the reports, and it'll just create an export that you can open up. But I'm hoping that this is going to be a really great tool for folks to use because as we're building out the budget, we want to make these reports available for other budget, other portions of the budget for 2025. Is there any questions?
Norma, can I just add an aesthetic thing in the view? If you go back to the view where you were looking at the category of requests down below.
Okay.
It may be useful. The short description. You can adjust those columns so that you can see more of the write-up of the description.
Yes.
That might be useful for
Yeah,
folks.
I'm sorry. So yes, just by kind of just expanding that column, you can read more of the description.
You can shorten some of the other columns that are smaller. Yeah.
Well, and I believe you can hide them too. So if you don't really care to see it, you can just hide them out. So there's a lot of additional features in this.
Shauna?
Is there any way that you could send us the link for this again?
Yes, actually, we've created an email with all the instructions that go along with this.
Okay,
And you don't have to log in, Shauna.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kept getting caught up. I always forget my employee number, and then I have to write Katrina, and then I get it's just a.
Yeah, you won't have to log in. This is made
Hope I'm
available.
not the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
You're not.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
I like the interactivity process of this thing. I think that will be very, very useful. Unfortunately, through no fault of yours, all this is very difficult for us to see on these screens. We don't have the theater screens anymore. The legislature decided not to do that, so we have to have what we have. But I think it'll be better when we maybe get it on our own computers. Maybe we can see it a little better. I'm sorry it's not more visible here, but I can see this is a huge amount of work.
It's much easier once the huge work was getting it all compiled over the last 10 years, so.
I'll bet it was.
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah.
And Lee?
I just, and I'm not sure that it is specific to OTRs in this conversation, but I did want to just let everyone know I came back from the board meeting with NISAC, and one thing that Westchester County does is every year they send out a form to their constituents, and it's a nice little color form, and it says, what does the county do? And it lists where all of their funds are going, and it has pie charts, and it lists their departments and what their capital expenses are. I made copies for everyone. I would love for all of us to take a look at this, because I think whenever we decide our budget and where our allocations are going to go for the next year, it kind of goes into a vacuum until people get their tax bill. And then people start to question, what are the funds being spent on? So I felt like this is like super transparent, and it really provides a nice screenshot of where taxes are going. So I would love to do something like this in our county, if you all were up for it.
Yeah, Sean, I just created a 2024 pie chart with all the departments and how the money is getting spent. So it's pretty easy to do online.
It's pretty. Lee?
Just a couple of questions. Some of the slides you were showing had numbers that went down in the middle. What does that reflect?
That was 2020, and I believe that was when we had, because of the pandemic, there was significant cuts to departments. So that's what that's showing. So while there were increases, and we thought it was very important to leave all of that data there so that you could see why there was a big jump in the next year, because there was such a large cut the year before.
No, I think that's helpful to.
Yeah, and it'll say
context
in there that it was due to the cut for the pandemic, yeah, or something like that.
And I know your purpose in doing this was to feed our inquiring minds around the table here, but how will this inform your budget recommendations from administration?
That's a great question. I think this exercise certainly indicates departments and agencies that have seen significant target increases over the years, and I think having that information in the back of my mind as I go about reviewing and making determinations, that's very useful. And I think that sharing this information with legislators at this stage of the process, you can do the same background inquiry, and we can all be digesting the information together. That's the hope and the goal.
I should have stated too, while we were doing the presentation, that all of the departments and agencies have been given this chart to review before you, so that if there were any questions that come from the legislature, they're not caught unaware that these questions are coming.
I can hear some of our colleagues that will say, well, we've invested very heavily in this area or that area over the last few years, and this will certainly illustrate or validate that. But the other thing is it will probably lead us to some other questions saying, okay, for where we've made these investments, what can you show us as a product of that during that time? And I can think of a couple of major initiatives that are up for review.
Yes. And just a point of clarification, this data only includes over-target requests that have gone into target budgets. So any one-time over-target requests that have just gone away or that are still one-time and we haven't moved to target won't appear in this data.
Thanks for that. That's good. All right. Well, thank you for that presentation. Well, that's one that raises another question. How about multi-year targets that are up for review?
They won't appear in this data until they become target. That was the discussion at the budget retreat was about the funding that has, become part of target for either agencies or departments, and the fact that so much of our discussion focuses on over target, and we've been neglecting the base budgets and some things that have now moved into the base budgets. So that was the focus of this. Certainly, if there's a request for the one-times, it's something that we could consider, but the usefulness of that for this exercise was a little tangential.
Okay. All right, anything else you'd like to talk to us about, Lisa?
Just an update of where we are in the budget process. We continue to meet with departments on their capital plans, and those PAR forms, project approval request forms, are making their way to the program committees in the next month or two. So that will be, you'll be seeing those in the program committees, and then departments and agencies this is the deadline this week, this Friday, to submit their maintenance of effort budgets, and then the second budget preparation they will be working on is a budget with a 5% reduction. So all of our departments are hard at work at this, and we are too.
Okay. I would point out we have 45 minutes left. We still got a lot of stuff to go through, but we don't want to shortchange anybody. And next up is our airport to discuss an issue about airport staffing changes that initially came to the F&I committee. Roxanne Noble.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thanks for having me here. So I just kind of want to give a report and kind of get some feedback if I could. The airport currently oversees various contracts. We have paid parking management, exterior landscaping, snow plowing, cleaning, and an overnight security company that just locks and unlocks the terminal for us. Many years ago, with Lisa's help, we began looking at becoming a 24-hour operations with our operations staff, trying to factor that into our budget, covering the cost. It will be a better operation. It will, allow for snow clearance. It'll allow for a reduction in overtime costs for that. It'll also be helpful. We've had many instances where an ambulance tries to get in to maybe meet a Mercy flight or with a patient. There's nobody here to open the gate. So that could be a life-saving situation there as well. It's also been some security issues. We all know with technology, gates and doors may pop open. If airport operations is on staff, they would be able to do, different checks of the airfield to make sure gates and doors are closed. Then in the end of 2023, we did an RFP for our parking lot contract. It's currently a management contract. We were hoping to go to something different. Because of the cost of the contract was exceeding really, we were paying them some months to basically operate our parking lot. I remember somebody at the F&I committee, one of the legislators indicated, why aren't we doing this ourselves? So this was something that Josh and I had already been looking at for multiple reasons. So we started really crunching more numbers and, definitely with the help of Lisa and Norm, we're really looking at all options and all opportunities of how could we do this outside of the box, more efficient, while also either being budget neutral or potentially really looking at this could be a $50,000 savings in year one and could increase as our passenger numbers go up. So we looked at the numbers, we looked at what we could cover for contracts, and by taking over the contracts I mentioned earlier, hiring 5 maintenance people, airport maintenance staff, and 2 airport operations firefighters, we could cover the contract work, we could cover the overnight hours, we could have people here 24 hours a day. Presently, our airport terminal opens at 3:30 in the morning. We don't have a county staff person present. Medical emergencies happen in the terminal, and yes, we're thankful for our volunteer companies, but being here, our guys can respond in less than a minute. They can be there, and they have been credited with saving a life on that situation. So these are important things that we looked at. Also, I believe, county employees, it's a great place to work, looking at being good paying jobs for people to be able to help in that situation. So this was just something that, we really began looking at. I really think this is a benefit for the county, for the airport, and I think it'll be helpful, and just kind of want to get everybody's feedback. I'd like to be able to know, like, moving forward. I'm working on it for the budget, but also it would be helpful if this is something we could look at possibly doing sooner, like phasing it out over the next few months. The current parking agreement does expire at the end of June. We do have the opportunity, we can renew it for 6 months, but it's just we're paying them monthly. I would rather see the revenue coming into the airport directly.
Can we take questions at this point, Roxanne?
Absolutely.
All right. Lisa, is there anything you want to add first?
Sure, just to say that Roxanne already presented this information to the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee. We've had multiple discussions with her and the budget team in county administration, but we thought that the change is significant enough in changing from contracted staff to paid staff and the 24-hour operation that we wanted to bring it to the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee for any further discussion or questions.
Shawna.
Yeah, I guess I have some concerns about this because as everyone knows, our airport is bringing in less revenue than it has previously brought in over the years. And increasing the staff seems counterintuitive to probably what we should be doing. Is there any way that we can see the positions being proposed, the salary and fringes, and then the contract costs?
Yeah, absolutely. I can put together a document and email that to people, sure.
Okay.
So we factored in the raises, the anticipated raises. We don't know those yet. We factored in the cost of, the shift pay. We looked at the contracts, and we know that, the salaries are increasing, but also contract prices are increasing. And having staff here sometimes is easier than contract staff. We've run into instances where, our overnight security, they may, there's really 2 people that cover that. And if one person's sick, they have multiple people, or we end up, they can't cover it. So it's it would be really beneficial to have that opportunity to have the staff here. I think I've reworked the numbers with Norma and Josh and looked at everything, but I would be glad to put together that, yeah. What I looked at, I can just tell you, I'm trying to pull it right here, about a $50,000 savings with the staff and the shift pay. And we've also met with HR on the job titles and factoring that all into.
I guess I'm wondering at this point, if we're seeing decreased revenues from the airport, why we're looking at going the opposite direction and providing more service. Like that doesn't equate to me. And then the second question I had was in regards to parking. I mean, I can't imagine that we make a fortune in parking. At what point are we going to say, let's provide free parking and not have to pay an attendant to be there 20 hours a day to make, you know, I can imagine there are some hours that you're not seeing anyone go through that gate. Typically, whenever I've gone to the airport to pick people up, it's like $1.25. So
we do generate quite a bit of revenue, and that used to actually be one of our larger revenue generators. I think in 2019 it was over $200,000 that we made. And I'll put all this together, Shauna, absolutely. Okay. And we're not really like increasing service. We're trying to get away from having a parking attendant there. So these maintenance people would be able to plow the parking lot. They would be able to, the parking lot, the paid parking lot, maintain, you know, go to the gate if there is any issue so that it's not relied solely on just credit cards. Because some people still only do carry cash and want to be able to have somebody there. So the maintenance people would be covering that. They would be covering terminal cleaning. They would be covering multiple levels. And so it would be a better fit to cover more areas with less cost. Does that make sense? Did I say that?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yep.
Another point to be made on the parking is that with the current contract as it's structured, we are not only contracting and paying for someone else to provide that service, but they are getting a large portion of that revenue that the airport is not seeing. So this is an area of cost savings potentially.
And also because they didn't have anybody to plow, and because the way the contract was written, $7,000 a month, they had to hire a company to come in and plow the paid parking lot, whether the person came one time or 10 times. So it was just, you know, we were trying to, when we got that information, we were like, we've got to do something different. This isn't working.
Thank you.
Rich?
Thank you for looking at this. It looks like you spent a lot of time doing analysis here, and that's commendable. I'm curious, we're looking at a very specific point in time with curtailed service at the airport. If, as we hope, we end up coming back to where we were pre-pandemic, have you thought about how this would work then? Would it still be a cost saving, or would we be able to absorb it without a problem?
It would be, so if we get back to pre-pandemic level, we'll be making additional revenue. Our parking revenue will increase, but we'll still maintain with the staff that we would have hired. We wouldn't need additional staff because we're covering the multiple hours. I think if that's the question you're asking, Rich, we would have additional revenue because the parking would increase and the other non-airline revenue would increase, but we would still have the ability to have people here covering it from the county, not contract services.
Would you anticipate needing additional headcount at that point?
I would say no at this point, only because we looked at our schedule for the airport maintenance workers. We've looked at the schedule for the operations staff. It covers the hours needed for operations. It puts somebody here, an EMT and operations staff here, an individual 24 hours a day. It gives the maintenance staff, and the cleaning staff, they would be able to do other work. We've also thought of different options too, where sometimes a low-cost carrier, we're continually talking to them. If one of them happened to come in, for them to pay to have somebody, if it's a 2-day-a-week flight, to have somebody work baggage. That's something that this airport maintenance worker could do as well. So it would be a cost savings there. It would be another enticing thing that we could use. We did hear that United has added the third flight. I reported that at F&I for the end of the year. They've actually increased that. It's going to be now from the end of October through the third week of December. So we're having great talks with the airlines and continuing to try to move stuff forward with them.
Thanks.
Yep.
Other questions for Roxanne? Lisa, is it my understanding that you think this is the way to go?
I think that we have put the airport leadership through the ringer, asking questions and delving deeper, and to try to prove out that this is cost neutral or even slightly revenue generating. So I think that they have convinced us that that is the case, so.
Thank you. So what would be the next step here?
Well, Roxanne, as she mentioned, is preparing her budget for 2025, and within the parameters that we've set, and utilizing this model going forward within those parameters. So she is coming up against contracts and needing to make a determination as to whether to renew contracts or start moving to this model. And I would like to be able to say, go ahead and move toward this model, but I wanted to make sure that that legislators were well aware that this was the direction we were going.
What do you need from us? Do you need a resolution? Do you need a motion? Do you need, you're informing us today.
Yes.
But it sounds like there may be a time crunch.
Yeah, I'm not certain that a resolution is needed because of they're not asking for additional funding. It's a change of course. So I think this is just information only, and we can provide the further details as that Shauna was requesting.
So direction to proceed would come from F&I?
I think it would come from the county administrator, but.
Okay. All right, so you're just informing us.
Yes.
And now, Shauna, you've raised some questions. I don't know if others have any other reservations here. Lee?
Just procedurally, when would you start to see these contracts end and the addition of these positions?
Roxanne?
Yep, so I got that. So it would be tight, but if we move fast, we could just go with ending the parking contract at the end of June, moving forward to collecting the revenue ourselves. We wouldn't have the positions, but we could, being summer, we don't have the snow plowing and all of that to deal with, so this would be a good time to start taking over the parking lot operations, and then work on getting the job posted and getting somebody hired for the maintenance. And then we would need a 30-day notice. I've spoken with the county attorney on canceling the other contracts. So I think once, we move forward with the parking, that would be the first step. Start looking at the maintenance workers and then give the notice for the 30-day contract cancellation. So probably end of summer for the maintenance workers, as well as then begin looking at the 2 airport firefighter ops techs positions, getting them hired, and then we could do a class with them this year. That would roll in easier. We could then cancel the overnight security contract about the same time. So that would probably be September, October.
Do we still have, Lisa or Norma, do we still have policies where the board's got, or the legislature has to increase or approve new FTEs?
Not that I'm aware. If it's revenue neutral, I guess the other option is to take this through the budget process. But this is, again, a revenue neutral. These changes are revenue neutral that we're talking about.
I don't have, real strong opinion one way or another. It looks as though it's a reasonable proposal, and there's cost savings involved. I'm just thinking back to some of our colleagues, and when they see that bar graph of FTEs, it's one of these asterisks that ends up being placed on there that, well, we've added 7 positions, but it reduced cost. That will raise some eyebrows.
I will introduce this as a discussion item in my report at the legislature meeting next Tuesday. And perhaps, Roxanne, if you could be there, and Lisa, and advise the other legislators of these steps that you're proposing to make. Would that make some sense? Lee? Okay. Rich?
Yeah, I just wanted to go on record. I support this. I think it makes sense to try to save some money here and to get better control of the operation. And Roxanne, I'm looking forward to coming out this weekend to be an injured person at the emergency.
Looking forward to seeing you.
I think it's 6 a.m., right? It starts?
Yes.
Yeah, even better. Yeah.
So exciting,
What will
right?
your injury be?
I'm open, Roxanne. I wanted you to know. I'm happy to be
Got
hurt in all
kinds
sorts of ways.
Yeah, so you'll get a card and hopefully you're just critically injured, not a deceased person, because.
Yeah, I'd like to be, I don't want to move on, but.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks
Thank you for doing that.
thanks
That's
for
appreciated.
volunteering for that. All right. Thank you, Roxanne. Anything else?
That is it. Thank you guys very much.
All right. Ruby and Lori, I'd like to take our resolutions and then come back to your reports. Would that be all right? All right, thanks. Let's go to the resolutions. Let's get them on record so we don't run out of time. We've got Resolution A, budget transfer, children with special care needs, early intervention. That's 12431. Someone want to move that? Shauna and Rich. Discussion on that. Ready to vote? Those in favor? That's unanimous. Got resolution here, B, resolution designating Tompkins County Finance Director as the Chief Fiscal Officer of the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium. And we did have a discussion about this before, and I know Lori just can't wait, but Lee has moved it. Is there a second? Seconded by Rich. All those, are there further discussion?
As long as Lori hasn't had her change of thoughts.
Rich?
Yeah, and just to reiterate, if it turns out to be really burdensome, you'd come and talk to us about it.
Yeah, I think exactly what we said. You're exactly right. Ready to vote? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Resolution C, ratification of bargaining agreement between the correction officers, Local 2062, and the County of Tompkins. That's 12473. Someone want to move that one? Rich, seconded by Shauna. And a long time in coming. Discussion about this one. Rich?
Yeah, I just wanted to express thanks for the work on this, and also to the corrections officers for coming to the table. You know, I know that this was a difficult negotiation extending over many years, and there was some intimation that the legislature wasn't serious about trying to reach an agreement with them, and I just that hurt a bit, and I'm very happy that we've gotten here. So again, thanks.
Are we ready to vote? Those in favor? That's unanimous as well. Now we go to D, adjustment of the 2024 budget city county sales tax distribution agreement, 12452. Who wants to talk about that? Lori, have anything you want to say, or just hear the figures?
Did we move in second?
Is there a second? Second by Rich. Or was that a first? I'm sorry.
I don't know if anybody moved.
We're okay?
Rich would have moved it.
Rich moved it. Who seconded it? Lee. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So, go ahead. Any other comments?
I do have comment, but did you want to talk to it, or?
The only thing I can say is there was this is mostly a cleanup resolution from what was budgeted to what should have been budgeted to what the actual amount was. So it's just correcting the budgeted figures and actual.
Based on final sales tax figures that we got. Rich?
Yeah, I just have some unfortunate comments in that the sales tax agreement seems to have been created 26 years ago. And I'm afraid that it hasn't really been addressed in any serious way since then, because nobody wants to. But looking at this and the complexity of where the money is traveling through this agreement, we probably should, and I guess I'm at a loss to understand how would we even approach that process with the towns and the city. This seems so complicated yet necessary. I don't think we have time to enter in any extended discussion today, but this resolution brings it to mind.
I would just say, I think one of the issues is this gives us some area of influence over what goes through the city that we wouldn't have if the city simply preempted and took its share under state law. I don't know how, otherwise you'd have to go to the city and talk about reopening the agreement. I think that's why nobody wants to do that. Fortunately, the city just got an increase in, we used to call it revenue sharing from the state, but it's the AIM funding, which the cities get, and the towns and villages are, and the counties are out of it a long time ago, but per capita, I did the figures one time, it's huge, the number of per capita dollars that go to the city of Ithaca as opposed to that goes to the towns and villages. It was like $1 million to the city, it was like $300,000 to the towns and villages. And now I think they put $50 million in statewide, so that's going to be an increase to the city of Ithaca. So I would point that out too. Lisa?
About a year or more ago, we did a deep dive into this, and my recollection is that the city needs to be willing to come to the table in order for it to for negotiations to happen. It's something worth revisiting, taking a look at, and maybe talking with our new county attorney about.
As of just a preliminary threshold, it would be interesting to know if they just took their share, if it would be more or less than under the agreement. Because I don't know.
I think it's not a matter of they're not getting that amount, but what the agreement says is that some of it gets used for things that the county wants to see it used for. If we didn't have this agreement, they would just use it for whatever they wanted to, and they might use it for these items, and they might not.
Right, but is it net zero?
Can't tell you.
Okay.
Is it?
Okay, anything else on this? Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. And the last resolution, we have a resolution to update the administrative policy manual. That's policy 0304, emergency leave sharing. That's 12447. Someone want to move that one? Rich? Seconded by Lee. This went through GO. Is there questions on this one? Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? And the last resolution we withdrew. Okay, now let's go back up and go to Ruby Pulliam, our Human Resources Commissioner.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to say a portion of the HR staff has returned fresh from the 2024 NAPSCO, the Civil Service Conference. And I question the word fresh because there was a lot of information packed in 2.5 days. So after 3 o'clock today, we all might be a little bit less attentive. But I'd like to give some highlights really quickly and then just a brief report. From the conference, there is support for more training and experience exams, which is a good thing, where we, instead of the standardized written exam, it would be based more on the training and experience of the candidate. The HELP program, which we've been participating in, is likely to be extended to 2025, but we don't have a definite date yet, but that's also a good thing. For the first round, 14 of the 15 titles that we submitted were approved. We submitted 39 titles for the second round and 30 titles for the third round, and we're still looking over our titles to see what titles can fit within this program. Right now, the state is very supportive of getting as many titles through this as possible, which is a good thing, and we're still trying to take advantage of it. Again, the HELP program will allow us to be non-competitive titles, and so that the employees won't have to take an exam. There's strong support for no exams for positions that require professional licenses or certification, which is also a good thing. And the scuttlebutt really is, in the association, the number of openings for county administrators and the difficulty they're having recruiting it. So we're going to do all we can and push forth our best efforts to make sure that position is filled as soon as possible. The 25-year club dinner, the new date is June 27th. We're inviting you all to attend. If you have not RSVP'd, please do so again. And again, thank you for your patience and understanding with our need to reschedule that date. Within the next week, I will be scheduling a meeting with Mike and Dan to go over the performance evaluation process that I think I've just about finalized. And then the next step is to actually meet with the performance review panels to ensure that they're ready to start their initial dialogue. And at this point, Larry has just a brief update on the numbers that we've been reporting.
Yeah, good morning. So as far as staff totals, we are at 789. Our youth summer programs are really kicking off, so we're up to 49 there. As far as recruitment, assistant DA, we've been looking for equipment service tech and caseworkers, and then there's about 20 other, there is exactly 20 other positions that we have posted. Our municipalities have 64 positions posted with us. So they're looking for lots and lots of different things there. As far as outreach, this last month we did quite a few mock interviews with Lansing and Groton high schools. Went out several times to both schools, helping seniors learn interviewing skills. That's a lot of fun to do. I myself did a total of 20 mock interviews between the two schools last month. As far as applications, we were at 368. Civil service tests posted were 9. We had 30 applicants for those. We onboarded 13 new staff and offboarded 7. As far as benefits, new benefits, for those folks, 13 of the 13 signed up for health insurance, 4 of the dental, 3 vision, and 4 in the FSA. And we onboarded 15 with retirement. Of course, that's a little more because a couple of the youth from our JTPA program signed up for retirement. Leaves, we have 74 for disability, cancer screening 15, bereavement 9, 1 jury duty, and 2 COVID. Then we had 4 staff that went to trainings for the month.
Are there any questions?
Thank you, folks, for attending that civil service training. That's pretty important.
It's a lot of good information.
Any other questions for Ruby or Larry? Thank you both. Lori.
Thank you. Good morning. One quick update on the in-rem foreclosure process. We are currently, as of yesterday, at 14 properties going to the auction. Just to remind you, back in October, we started with 68. So come a long way in that process. The adult use cannabis graphs you should have in your packet. Adult use cannabis has seen a decline for the period of December of 23 through February of 24. We received total $24,000, of which the county retains 25% or $6,000. So that's a 67% drop from the previous reporting period. And I'll go to the casino. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rich.
The dispensaries were closed though, right? But now there's at least, the original one is reopened and there's 2 more at least?
I believe so. I don't know exactly those. I get the report from the state, which lags a little bit on the money, which is why the delay in getting this to you. So as of this reporting period, it was just the one, or the 2 dispensaries that I've noted, William Jane and Aspire, and they're both within the city of Ithaca.
Okay, is the one in Dryden open? I drove by it. But...
Yeah, they got a sign up that says it's open, or a flag.
So it might have been since
they're waiting
February.
to get approval of their drive-through, I should say.
Doesn't the local legislator go and attend the grand opening with new businesses there
I have
in
not
the district? Or?
And part of the ribbon cutting, that would be the town supervisor.
Oh, okay.
Where are you shopping, Mike?
Sorry. I buy groceries. I do want to say that I wonder, Rich, maybe your committee would want to talk about this sometime, what the competition with the black market is going to be on this.
We have had some conversation about that, and you're absolutely right that this is a real problem, and that New York State has not done any really kind of effective enforcement over the illicit sales, and you have real problems of quality of product. Of course, there's no tax paid. There's sales to people under 21, and you know, it's not what was contemplated at all. The one thing is that there is the opportunity for local enforcement. It is not constrained to just New York State doing the enforcement, and I did talk to some city people saying we are giving away a lot of tax revenue because we're not really taking any effective steps to close down the illicit and I'd say dangerous people selling cannabis.
Shauna?
Yeah, so this actually came up, I want to say about a year ago maybe, at the Board of Health, and Frank Krupa was involved, Lisa, myself, and there's a tobacco-free person from Cortland that was involved as well. We made a list of all of the rogue shops that were open illegally and did not have licenses, and the Assistant Attorney General out of Binghamton actually came down, had officers put up signs and close the places down that did not have licenses. So if there are any right now that are operating that do not have licenses, let us know, and we'll pass those on to her office. But I will say within 2 weeks of us having the phone call, those shops were shut down.
But I wonder if, sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
Oh, no. So last week, the Office of Cannabis Management from the state held a webinar, and several of us from the county attended because of the governor's new budget, calls for additional enforcement power for municipalities, including counties. So it's something that we can talk more about at public safety, perhaps, to see if we want to take further steps to utilize those powers.
And there's a new director, is that correct?
I believe so.
When the tobacco restriction legislation went through, the county also passed a local law which mimicked the state law so that we would have enforcement authority on that. But maybe even unlicensed stores, I'm thinking there's still going to be the black market out there, that they aren't going to have any stores. They're just going to sell it like they have forever. And it's even going to be easier because now it's going to be legal to grow. So don't expect a response on that. I'm just venting a little bit. Anything else on cannabis? I think you have casino revenue.
Yes, so the casino revenue is holding steady. Over this first quarter for 2024 over 2023, we saw an increase of $2,267, or a 0.4% increase. Comparing it to what we budgeted of $2.1 million, we are running at about 29%, so that's right on track for the first quarter. And the last graph shows the casino revenue by the casinos. So Del Lago's total is about $346,000, and Tioga Downs at $256,000, and they are running pretty steady.
Questions on that one? I do see a lot of ads on TV for Del Lago lately. The town they're in doesn't have to have taxes anymore because of the amount of money they get. Sales tax? By category.
So this is an informational item I believe Shauna brought back from NICEAG of the total taxable sales by category.
I thought that was very interesting, Shauna. Thank you for sending that out to us, and I just thought the whole committee would like to see it as well. Rich?
Yeah, I did find this interesting. Thanks for sharing it. I was curious, the line item 16, Administration of Economic Programs. What is that as a sales tax category? And my other question was the next line down, wired and wireless telecommunications. There seems to be a pretty substantial change from 23 to 24. And I'm wondering why, is there finally competition entering wireless, or are people just talking less? What do you think, Lisa?
I wonder if that could be, for example, bulk sales and things like that, where the sales tax is sent directly into the state, possibly.
I think there's continued drops of landline phones. And just people are shedding a lot of the wired-related activities and running their operations off of these things. At least that's what I was seeing when I left 911, is that, there's like, at one point, we were peaked and budgeted at 50,000 landlines, and when I left emergency response, it was 10,000 and dropping precipitously. And how many people, other than maybe Mike, still have a fax line in their office? That's gone away in many regards. I did some switches yesterday on some of my services and consolidated down. So that may be part of where the wired and wireless dynamics are.
Could be.
And you're saturated now. Everybody's got one of these. So that growth that we had for 20 years is probably hitting a capacity.
Other questions on the sales tax? Questions? Laura, anything else you'd like to tell us today?
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you for your report. Veronica, Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, I don't have much to say other than what I said at the last full legislature meeting. Our last meeting, we had a good conversation about past climate surveys within the county and began brainstorming things we might like to see in a future one, very generally. And our agenda for the next meeting is not set yet. One thing that some committee members had interest in is looking at the minimum qualifications for various jobs in the county and seeing if those could or should be adjusted to be able to be more inclusive in hiring. And I will admit that I, as the chair of this committee, have no idea how to begin that, or if we should. So Ruby, I'd love your input as to what a first step might be. And if it's to like just meet with you elsewhere, that would be.
You can meet with me and we can take a look at some of the minimum quals. As a rule, the minimum quals are just basic degree and experience requirements. There are no extra preferences or anything like that. But we are working with our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer as positions are posted to put some inclusive languages in the postings and in the actual description of the job. Not with the minimum quals, but we can talk about that offline.
Okay, sounds good. The other thing, maybe this is just a comment from me, is I was thinking about the communication between WDIC and this committee, which like I come and report here, but looking back through old memberships, it seems like it's been 5 years since there was a legislator who sat on both at once. And I think it would be nice to have a legislator that sits on both. This isn't an action item for now, and this is a decision from the next legislature chair, but you know, that person could be any of us. So I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know what it's like to have someone serving on both WDIC and BCP, because I haven't experienced that in the legislature, but it seems like it could be a good thing to have information flowing both ways. And on that note, I guess I've never said, but if things come up in this committee that you think, oh, we should send WDIC to take a look at that, there is a sense in which we are an advisory board in addition to a committee, so I would welcome directions like that, the way we'll sometimes tell an advisory board, because they ask us like, hey, we'd love to learn more about or hear from you about blah, blah, blah. That's all.
But good suggestion. And look, if there are volunteers who would like to go on WDIC, please raise your hands. And now we're in the future. I've never been on WDIC, but I have attended some of their meetings, found them very informative, and they're appreciative when we come to them. So I would just point that out.
Oh, and we've just moved our meetings to the big kids table, so there will be seats for you if you'd like to come.
Rich?
As an alternative to considering changing minimum qualifications, we had a presentation from TC3 today, and just one of the things they talked about was how hard they're working to reach out to the community to offer specific credentials for specific jobs. And I think there's probably an information sharing process that we could develop to connect what are the qualifications for these jobs to the available training opportunities at TC3 or elsewhere. And I don't know if the minimum qualifications are a real barrier or if they're necessary, but I'd love to see if we could address it saying, get to the minimum qualifications rather than saying, let's not have them. Anyway, just an alternative.
I don't have anything else on my report. Anything else anyone would like to bring up today? I think we can stand adjourned then. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Rob.